My name is N.Y. Nathiri. I work as the Director for Multidisciplinary Programs with the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community. And I'm pleased to count Professor Anthony Major as my counterpart and colleague representing history, heritage, culture on the University of Central Florida campus. What I want to talk with you today is about practicum, about pragmatism, and about the real situation in the real world. And so the talk is Culture as Catalyst for Change, the Zora Neale Hurston Festival as a case study. I think that it's very important that we are grounded in reality. You being students, you have the privilege of not facing reality for a certain period of time. But then you're going to transition into the real world of work, the real world of society, and hopefully you will be able to find a job based on what you have been studying, based on what you will love, based on what engages you, as opposed to some sort of make work where you're simply trying to scrap for a living. What I want to talk with you about is a great privilege that some of us have had in actually being able to enjoy the work that we're doing on one level, while we're also making change on another level, and that change representing social change as well as economic change. And that is an interesting phenomenon given the fact that we're talking about the African American experience and condition in 20th and 21st century America. Because the premise is that from an institutional perspective, from a societal perspective, the African American community still is in a subordinate position. Is that your understanding, or am I just want to make sure that I'm not saying something that seems radically different from the world that you are experiencing or have experienced. And if I am, please interrupt me, because this is not just my talking to you, this is really an interactive proposition. And so if, as I'm speaking, any assertions that I'm making, you want to question or ask for a little bit of justification, please don't hesitate. Please don't hesitate. In 1987, the County of Orange decided that it was going to 5-lane the 2-lane road that runs through the Eatonville community. Now let me ask you by a show of hands, how many of you know where Eatonville is? So you've been in Eatonville, and so you know that it's not an exaggeration for me to say that the current 2 lanes of Eatonville are not really any wider than this room. Am I lying or am I flying? Okay? So you know that in 1987, or perhaps how many of you are registered voters? All right, how many of you were born in 1987? Were you alive? Okay. In 1987 in Orange County, there was no single member districting voting. Do you know the difference between at-large voting and single-member district voting? When you have a single-member district, your representative is responsible to you electorally because he or she comes from your district and you vote for that person. So in 1987, when I say that Orange County, the voting was done at large, and that the population demographic was approximately 80% or more white and about 12% African American, and that Eatonville was then and is still now known as a low socioeconomic community. What would you expect to be the case when the County of Orange decided unanimously that it was going to 5-lane the 2-lane road in Eatonville, what would you have expected to occur? That it was going to happen. Exactly, it was going to happen. And why was it going to happen? Let's talk about that. Why would you expect that that was going to happen? Anybody? Say again? All right, because at large, remember, I've probably given you all the answers already, so it's just a matter of us extracting. One is there was no voice, no representative voice, because the voting was at large. So that's one reason. What's another reason that it was supposed to happen? Yes?
Because the people who live there were the minorities.
Well, let's be a little bit more specific. This is really more economic. Yes, they were, quote, the minority racially, but let's talk about something else that impacts the political process. Eatonville was what? A low socioeconomic community. Now, let's fast forward before we go back. I was listening to a local program, probably about 6 months ago, and Dr. Hank Fishkind, an economist, made the statement that the budget cuts that were going to happen in the state of Florida's budget, that they were going to affect disproportionately the poor and disenfranchised. And he said without any hesitation, that's because they don't have any political power. So you can cut them because nobody's going to complain, or no one understands how to complain. So when the County of Orange Commission, 5 people, unanimously voted to 5-lane the 2-lane road, it was supposed to happen. Now, I forgot to say to you that when this governmental action was taking place, when it occurred the Monday before the Thanksgiving holiday. Why was that? No one's paying attention. In other words, the Monday before Thanksgiving holiday takes you right into the Christmas, yes, please speak right up, Christmas season. And what are we doing in the Christmas season? Shopping and having a good time. Who's paying attention? Now, we don't want to be cynical, but nonetheless, that's when the legislative calendar took place. And so this was supposed to be a done deal. In fact, this was a road improvement project that was going to take place over a 1.3-mile area, and it was going to cost, as I recollect, about $4 million. Okay. Now, one or two other little bits of information. Eatonville still is the last undeveloped parcel of land in Orange County. If you know where Eatonville is, what is to the east of it? Thank you. Don't hesitate. Maitland. Yeah. What is to the south of it? WP. Thank you. Winter Park. What is to the north of it? AS. Altamont Springs. So you have this little, see how the geography comes? This is called the Socratic method for my colleagues. You remember, we just pull that information because you already know it. All right, so we've got a little bit of Eatonville with a population of about 2,300, mostly elderly, all right, old people, young people, okay? And this is going to happen because this is a road improvement project. Why are we having a road improvement project? Why are we doing that? To improve the road, but what is the point of the improvement project? What do you have to have? Starts with D, ends in T. Long word. Very good. Development, okay? Do any of you remember your history lessons? When the Western world went into the undiscovered world, the missionaries came first, but then to develop the property, you have to bring in infrastructure. So the road improvement is to allow for infrastructure so that development can come in. Now, when this took place, and this was supposed to be a fait accompli, that is Latin for a deal done, a deal done. And the public hearings that occurred were what we call pro forma. In other words, you do it because it's a process. But there was no expectation that the county government, the elected commission, would not endorse staff recommendations. All right? So what happened was, on the Monday before Thanksgiving, the staff came in and made its recommendations, and those recommendations were approved absolutely unanimously. And then, what is the great privilege that we enjoy as Americans, we formed a grassroots organization called the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community on the 7th of December, and we started to get very, 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 very busy. This was a community-busting road. Everyone knew that. And if you've taken political science 101, you'll know it too, because there are 3 classic ways to destroy a community. What's the first way? Take out a school. In other words, move the educational facility. Move those students out of the community. A second way is to destroy the religious the buildings, the churches. Well, in Eatonville, there are 14 churches. That's hard to do. But there's a third way that always works perfectly. Anybody here from New York City? Remember the Major Deegan Highway? You insert a highway. You destroy a community when you insert a highway. All right? So the road improvement project was not a good thing for us. But how to overcome that? Well, we were told if you can keep them from turning dirt for 5 years, you will win. And in fact, that was the case. For those of you who have been in Eatonville recently or in the last, you see the stretch of road from East Kennedy Boulevard, east going to Maitland. It's an attractive roadway, isn't it? Brick, lined, what do we call, landscaping? Are we remembering the same road? It wasn't like that 25 years ago. It was just paved top, all right? And so we were ultimately able to win that battle. We actually were able to do that. But we were able to do it in part because we had to make a case. We had to make a case that even though the powers that be in Orange County did not know that Eatonville was historically significant, did not know that Eatonville really was a literary destination because of whom? Zora Neale Hurston, because really people all over the world knew about Eatonville because they had read, their eyes are what? Listen, A+ to all these students. They had read that book. The people in Orange County did not know that. So we really had to make a case. And what we had to do was to explain that, number one, the town of Eatonville is the oldest incorporated African-American municipality in the United States, having been incorporated in 1887, and that Zora Neale Hurston, because of the genius of being able to research about the heritage of her people, and then having the genius to be able to tell wonderful stories, that Eatonville was a literary destination, and you wouldn't want to pave over Eatonville this way because lots of people would want to come to Eatonville. Can you believe it? That little sleepy town of about 2,500 people, that there would be people who would actually want to come from outside to be there? Well, yes, this is true. And we were talking about this before cultural tourism, heritage tourism, and ecotourism were phrases that were a part of the parlance of the language of economic development. Now, in Orange County, we know that the big horses are the what do we call them? The attractions: Walt Disney World, Universal Studios, and SeaWorld. Okay, yes, that's why the 40 million people come to Orlando. But in that segment of people, there are people called cultural tourists. They stay longer, all right, because, and if you'll believe it, but this is true, at a certain point, that ride at the attractions, you get tired of it. It may take you 20 times, it may take you 35 times, but there comes a time when, the whatever it is has lost its appeal. But cultural and heritage tourism, that thing that talks about who you are, the stories that represent your people, no matter who your people are, whether you're in Charleston, South Carolina, whether you're in Boston, Massachusetts, it doesn't matter. We really want to know about our roots. We enjoy going to museums. We enjoy going to plays. We enjoy the stories because that's a part of the essence of our humanity. Whether those stories are on the cave walls of Northern Europe, whether those stories are way down deep in the archaeological diggings in North Florida, or whether it's the stories of people of African ancestry in Eatonville. We're interested in those stories. And so, as we said, well, how can we make this case? How can we explain that really people are interested in Eatonville and Zora Neale Hurston? We came upon the idea of organizing the first annual Zora Neale Hurston Festival of the Arts. And would you believe that in 1990, in January 25 through 28, that the town of Eatonville swelled about 5 times because about 10,000 people from all over the country came to Eatonville. And what was of even more interest, because you're in the academy and the intellectual enterprise is what your life is about, we issued something called a call for papers. A call for papers is an intellectual competition. Like when you go for athletics and you're trying to get to be number one. Well, a call for papers occurs when you issue a topic, and then academics compete. They send in their abstracts and their papers so that they can get a chance to present that information at a conference. And so in 1989, we got 55 responses from academics from all over the country who wanted to pay to come to the Zora Neale Hurston Festival of the Arts. And that was really quite an accomplishment. We also received the largest grant that the Florida Endowment for the Humanities had ever awarded to any grant application. Typically, the councils, what they call the humanities councils, will award a grant of about $25,000 or $3,000. But because of the program that we were presenting, we got an award of $29,000 and change. Right? It was really quite amazing. But then, of course, we had Alice Walker, who had confirmed. We had Miss Ruby Dee, who had confirmed. We had Dr. Robert Hemingway, who had confirmed. If you go back and Google, I won't ask you to the library, just go back and Google these names. You'll see that we had the A+ list already confirmed to come. And so what that meant was, from a practical point of view, because we're talking now about not only social change, but economic change, and you know that in economic development terms, money is what? Color. Thank you, it's green. Money is green, all right? And so that means that the hotels around Orange County, the restaurants around Orange County, the places where tourists, and this is what cultural tourists do every 20 minutes, they eat, they shop, and they go to the bathroom. Statistically, this is what they do, all right? And so when I talk about economic change, I'm talking about the fact that we are eating and we are shopping, which means we are spending coin. And so today, as we prepare for the 23rd annual Zora Neale Hurston Festival of the Arts and Humanities, what I can say to you in terms of change, that what a cultural event, what the history of our people has done, is to provide an economic base for cultural tourism. And that means that people, 150,000, 200,000 people, we will once again assemble in Eatonville January 27th through 29, which is the outdoor festival. But they will start coming in on the 21st of January because they have come to expect the finest quality of arts and cultural programming. And what that is about knowing your story. You're in African American Studies, knowing your story, knowing how to tell your story so that it resonates. I've noticed that hardly anybody here has closed eyes. Nobody's drooping, and that is not usual. But you're attentive because this is interesting. And I'm trying to make it interesting, but it is interesting, all right? So if you know your story, and you know how to tell your story, and you know how to, and you enjoy people, then people are going to come. People are going to come, all right? This is a kind of product that people expect from the Zora Neale Hurston Festival of the Arts and Humanities. If you thumb through this, you will see a very attractive book. If you come to the museum, you can expect to see first-class publications, all right? If you are interested in working with us, and you know, this is the real world, so I'm trying to recruit because this event is based on volunteers. It's based on volunteers. The relationship that we would enjoy with the University of Central Florida, Professor Major has been first and foremost a volunteer. But as that relationship has grown, the university has embraced that relationship. The Zora Neale Hurston Institute for Documentary Studies, that didn't come like Athena out of Zeus's head. Do you know what I mean? You know, Athena all right, good, all right. That didn't come just like that. That came because, you know, we worked to get that. And the university embraced it because it's something of quality, and it propels and promotes the university as a place of intellectual acuity, a place where people of different backgrounds can come and really not only feel welcome, but can find information that they would not have ordinarily. So when we're talking again about culture as a catalyst for change, what we're saying is it really does not matter who you are, as long as you are willing to do the work that is necessary to advance your cause, as long as you really understand the essence of what it is that you are talking about, and as long as you will stick with it. So much of what happens in the real world is being at the table, you know, attending those meetings, making sure that you are present. Even when you've got lots and lots on your plate, even when you have lots and lots on your plate. But in our country, the nonprofit, the volunteer organization, there is a lot of power in there. There's a lot of people power in that. And I would say that essentially that is what the Zora Neale Hurston Festival represents. It represents the ability to take culture, history, and heritage, to package it so that there is something that people can know and learn about and enjoy, because no one wants a talking head, no one wants to be lectured to. But how can I enjoy that learning experience? And then how can I make something from it? In other words, how can I bring some economic advantage to the community? Now, we have been much more successful in doing that for the County of Orange than we have been in Eatonville. I have to say that to you frankly, because Orange County has the hotel, the lodging. Orange County has the, when I say Orange County, I mean the businesses in Orange County really have the benefit disproportionately than in Eatonville. Eatonville is still a work in progress. But we know, for example, that of all the organizations that have received funding, cultural tourism grants, Preserve Eatonville Community is the organization in Orange County that has received the most cultural tourism dollars since that program has been initiated. Okay? Now, that's not because we look so good, or it's because we have a product that we can demonstrate brings in dollars. We know that for every dollar invested, we talk about a rate of return. For every dollar that Orange County invests by way of grantsmanship to the Zora Neale Hurston Festival, we return typically a minimum of $4 or $5. It's called the rate of return. Right. Case in point, there's something called the Rhodes Scholar. Now, I don't mean Rhodes Scholar in England. I'm talking about ROAD. And this was a program that used to be called the Elder Hostel Program. Elder Hostel refers to senior citizens who have discretionary income, and when they go vacation, they want to learn, they want to be involved in a learning activity. Well, last year, Boston, the headquarters of Elder Hostel, sent down a representative to festival. We didn't know this. We did not know this, but the director came down to observe the Zora Neale Hurston Festival. And this year, an Elder Hostel program at Stetson University in DeLand advertised. Now, as I say, we did not know this until recently. They have done a pilot program. They advertised for 26 spaces for seniors to come down at festival and stay at Stetson and participate in festival. Do you know how many spaces are now available? How many? Zero. Okay, zero. We had nothing. This is no advertising on our part. They simply put it out, 0 spaces as of mid-October. Right? So that will give you a sense of where we are. As I say, I'm here in part to recruit. I'm hoping that you will, that some of you, 1 or 2 of you, may be so interested in what you're hearing that you will want to volunteer. The website is active, www.zorafestival.com. The volunteer forms are there online. We literally can use help right now in the museum. Tomorrow, we need to mail out 500 copies of this handbill, along with the other handbill that says, please help keep Zora Festival alive. Our councilwoman from Eatonville is going to Phoenix, Arizona, where there will be the annual League of Cities conference, and so she is going to be promoting on our behalf. But in order for her to promote, she's got to have materials to promote with. And so this handbill and this flyer, we are preparing those. Next week, we have another group of flyers that need to go out. I mean, we have lots of opportunities, and some of this, yes, it's going to be on the website, but when people have something like this, which is an attractive piece, is it not? Okay? You know, it resonates. This is about business, it's about selling. Between now and the 29th of January, all we're doing is selling, selling, selling. So if you are interested in helping to do that in any way, please be sure to sign up. I believe that we go until, is it 10:45? 11:45. What I'd like to do now is to really ask for some, let's engage. I've given you the broad highlights. I can tell you that Dr. Maya Angelou has been here, and Dr. Miss Ruby Dee, and Dr. Henry Louis Gates, and the late Dr. John Hope Franklin. I mean, we are known to bring the creme de la creme of the intellectual and creative context. Do you like that? I don't really speak. Yes. And in fact, yes, President Barack Obama was here when he was a senator and looking even younger than he looked when he was inaugurated. So yes, I mean that's there, all right. But the point is to really have you truly get your hands and head wrapped around what you have the power to do as an individual. You know, if you will but engage. Yes. Professor.
I'd like to say to my class, I've known Ms. Nathiri since I moved here almost 8 years ago. She was doing some business with my wife. We were touring what was that home where you had the scholars stay?
Zora's Place?
Zora's Place.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned a name that sent chills up my spine because my mentor in African American studies was
to stay there, and yes.
So it goes full circle. What I'd like to ask you to talk about in a little bit more detail, there are a couple of things. One is that moving into 22 years of doing cultural tourism, how does the Association to Preserve the Eatonville Community serve as a model for some of those other more well-known destination festivals around the country? Because 22 years sort of puts you sort of near the top of the list.
In fact, festivals of themselves, given the kind of event that festival typically is, festival as an event does not usually last as long as we have lasted. And we have lasted, frankly, because we're not a block party. We have been very attentive to what we call the intellectual element of festival programming. In other words, there's always a theme. In fact, festival is organized in 5-year cycles, so that we take it as a part of the assignment to bring discussion to the table, and so that makes a difference. It also makes a difference in that we are grassroots. We have institutional partnerships and relationships, but essentially we have our own 501c3, in other words, our own nonprofit status from the Internal Revenue. And because we do rely so much on volunteers, there's a kind of energy there. Our typical volunteer has been working with us about 7 to 10 years. All right. I mean, we have people who have been, they are lifers. There are people who want to know what's going on at a certain time because they know it's time to gear up. So in that regard, I would say that we're probably the longest lived grassroots organization dealing with African culture, African American culture, or African diaspora in the country. I know that there's a film festival in Los Angeles that may be as old as we. The Atlanta Black Arts Festival is something that is housed out of Fulton County government. But in terms of a non-governmental, grassroots institution that concerns itself with the people of African ancestry, then we are by far the longest. We have three goals that I should mention that never change. The three goals of festival are: one, to celebrate the life and work of Zora Neale Hurston, to celebrate the historic significance of Eatonville as the oldest incorporated African American municipality in the country, and third, to celebrate the cultural contributions which people of African ancestry have made to the United States and to world culture. So you can see that as long as people are alive, we'll be in business. And the second, you had a second.
The other part of my question, now it's coming to the third part. As Ms. Nathiri was speaking, she was telling you about the help that she needs. I would like her to address sort of, it's not that it's a plea for help, because you're actually talking about opportunities.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about opportunities for students.
To build, yeah,
to contribute,
yes,
contribute,
yes.
But it's also, part of it is on the academic side. So I'm looking at the composition of this class, which ends in December, and my next class starts in January. Some of these students will they might forget. Can you talk about the 5-year cycle and the academic thrust of the 5-year cycle?
Yeah.
Can you also talk about Can you also talk about the opportunities, because there are a lot of business majors in my class, and there are a lot of people who are interested in nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
And can you talk about the opportunities? Because it's not just that you're mailing out a flyer, it's like if you're contributing,
yes.
You're getting immersed
in the
absolutely. Process of how NPOs work.
Yes. I want to, let me, when we talk about contributing, and this is something that I failed to do, that I need to hit you up. I need to hit you up in two ways. I need you, because in a nonprofit, and this really is the case, in a nonprofit, in philanthropy, most of the money and the strength of the money, of the stability, comes from individuals. And so, yes, if you do a Starbucks, if you do a McDonald's smoothie, if you buy a beer, we're talking about the 5 for 5 campaign. We need your $5, and we need you to spread it to someone else. We are looking for a little bit of money from a whole lot of people. All right? And we really do need this to be viral. In fact, if there is anyone here who is interested in Google Analytics and blogging, I mean, seriously, this is the kind of thing that we will need to do between now and the end of January, because it's very important that we are able to demonstrate that we are a vibrant national grassroots-based organization. That's number one. Number two, in terms of contribution, yes, your brain power, your energy, and this is something that I want to say to you really as an older person talking to younger people. Relationships and networking is very, very important. There are people in your class, in the university class, that they will have, even in an economy where the jobs are tight, there are some people who are on a beeline to getting a job in the academy because of their contacts, because of the networking, because their parents and their parents' relationships will let them know that there is a job, that has not been advertised. All right? So when you're working with the Zora Festival, you are apt to run into a lot of different people with different backgrounds who have the ability to assist because you have made a relationship. And it's all about relationships. Have you heard that? It's all about relationships. Now, you have to have something once that door is open, okay? You got to have the skill set. But if you don't even know that there is a door, think about this. You don't even know there is a door. But by making yourself available, by being in the mix, then the advantage is, as one person from the mainstream said to me, well, I can build what did you say, her Rolodex. This was back in the 90s. I know you don't do Rolodex, now you do it on but the point is, you're building contacts. You're building contacts. Festival being what it is, literally, Miss Ruby D could still call on the telephone. All right. We may get a call from Dr. Maya Angelou's office. We can get a call. I mean, this happens. We'll get a call from Japan. We'll get a call from somebody in Africa. We'll get a call from somebody in the Caribbean. Because, again, this is about commerce. It is about commerce. So that is definitely the case. I would encourage you to think of that. Now, this 5-year cycle that we will only have 2 more festivals, it's about the global impact of Zora Neale Hurston. This past spring, Professor Major, Dr. Jose Fernandez, and a delegation went to Russia to participate in a conference. The scholar from Russia has been here, 3 years? This, to me, continues to be the most impressive. I'm accustomed to scholars coming from India, from Japan, from Nigeria, but I had to say, when the scholar came from Russia, I said, okay, this is, we are definitely, Zora Neale Hurston is definitely deep, okay? And she will be coming back this year. So we have in this little space, actually our office, our administrative office, our core administrative office is not as big as the space I'm standing in now. It's not as big as the space that I'm standing in now. But the fact is, the email and the telephone, it's global. Yesterday, an email from the daughter of the Muppets inventor. Is it Doug Henson? Jim Henson? If I'm lying, I'm flying. All right? Unsolicited. We are looking at, we're exploring how the Muppets, in terms of their African American, whatever it is, this is festival time. This is festival time. So, as we say in the vernacular, if and I was you, I'd be trying to see how I could, as they say, get up. The man said that what's happening? I'm just raining down truth on you. Have you seen that commercial? The Sears commercial. He says, what's that? That's some truth that's fallen down on you. Or any other comments? As I say, I'm really pleased that you are engaged. What you think, what you hear, what questions do you have? I would say that if you left the email, I am prepared to email to you. Sometimes hard copies are there for impression. This was something that I was asked to write back in 1999 with the federal government, the Park Service. I can email that to you. I did have the privilege of compiling a book called Zora Neale Hurston, A Woman in Her Community, and I would be prepared to email you the first chapter that gives you much more detail about this whole business, a little bit of my family history, if you're interested. And so that's what the email will allow me to do. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I think I may have read it. That's what it
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Any other comments? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Who are
What is happening?
You mentioned
Time, yes. It is. It goes entirely, and you're reminding me, we are very excited about a certain element of festival, and I will come to you. This year, we are saluting Eatonville's 125th anniversary, and so as the oldest incorporated African American municipality, and we are changing the format to really focus on Eatonville as a community. And one of the chief focuses is going to be what we call historic yards and gardens in Eatonville. But another part of what we are doing is looking at what it is that constitutes community as a concept. And we're very excited about Friday afternoon, the 27th. We want to devote that to an open-air hip-hop forum because hip-hop has been a foundational piece in development of culture, let's say, over the last 20 years. Now, I do have something that, if anybody can help, if anybody has any inside route to J. Cole, just let me know, okay? Anybody got any inside route to J. Cole? I understand that you all had Lupe here already for your...
J. Cole's here too. J. Cole was also here.
He has already been here. Yeah. Oh, does that mean that you all would not want to see him again? Yeah. Well, I heard a piece, the reason I really say this, I heard a piece on NPR about him, and it was really, we are very concerned with positive images, with with bringing people who have the ability to impact across the generations. And one of our main concerns is that we are able to engage and have younger people embrace what we're doing. But Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, you had your hand.
My name is Danielle. He came to my Evolution of Hip Hop class.
Oh, yes, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know what the movement was for that portion of the festival.
We are, and that, in fact, we have been trying to recruit about 3 UCF students who would like to work with us on that, like, how would you say, solidifying the final plans. We are interested, we need volunteers across the board, but in terms of what you say, structure, so we have been, Professor Major has been convening meetings since that time, and I would say that we're almost where we need to be, but the month of November is critical in terms of, wrapping up and making sure that we have everything in place. So that is where we are. And in fact, we're trying to, on Friday evening, our plan would be to have a performance stage and feature a hip-hop artist. And our first preference now is J. Cole. I understand he has a new record coming out. Is it already out? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, in what other ways do you engage the youth?
All right.
To help continue the legacy?
On a year-round, we've only been focusing here on the signature event, which is a special event, but on a year-round basis, we have 2 other programs that really focus on this cultural preservation mission. We have what is called the Excellence Without Excuse Community Computer Arts Lab. It is now in its 15th year, I believe, and that is an outreach program for after-school tutoring, bringing in computer technology. Eatonville, remember, is a low socioeconomic community, and not many homes have PCs. That's still the fact. And so there are PCs in the library, but what we find is even at a base prior to that the lab helps in terms of family literacy, in terms of computer literacy and services. The other thing that we do is in the summer. This will be our 20th summer in 2012. We have what is called the Summer Performing Arts Workshop, where we utilize culture, and performing arts to help build a sense of self-worth and self-esteem, to build self-discipline, and to show the relationship between hard work and success. You know that almost from the age of 3 or 4, there is a disconnect, there is a gap between white children and students of color, particularly African Americans. There's a gap. You see that it continues in your SAT scores. You see that in standardized tests. Well, that is not something that is driven from heaven. That's a circumstance. And the wonderful thing about it is you don't have to be rich to get a good education. All right? You don't even have to have a computer to get a good education. All right? What you have to have is a family that is caring and embracing, and that you drill so that if I were to stick a pin in you at 2 a.m. in the morning and say 7 times 7, you know it's what? 49. That's right, you know it's 49. That's flashcards. You don't need anything, If I say to you, what comes after M in the English alphabet, you know it's, that's right, because that's what you know. All right. So what we try to do is to do that. So that's one element. The other thing that is a year-round program for us and that really impacts students is the Zora Neale Hurston National Museum of Fine Arts. Any day, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., you can come to the museum, barring if it's, Thanksgiving or Christmas or like that, the big 6 holidays. But basically, we are there according to that schedule. And so as an institution, our footprint is year-round. Now, yes, we work festival year-round, and it comes at a certain time, but in terms of, being in place, being able to call, being able to email, that is what our footprint is. Okay? Other comments or questions? I did not bring with me, I perhaps should have done that, something from Zora Neale Hurston so that you could actually read, or actually you could hear her language, and that I apologize for. The genius of Zora Neale Hurston is really twofold. One, the folklorists of the country credit her for almost single-handedly preserving by documentation the authentic traditions of rural Southern African Americans. In other words, if Zora Neale Hurston had not gone to the turpentine camps, if she had not gone to the railroad camps, if she had not gone to the place, and this is a phrase that she talked about the fact that she wanted to document the lives of the Negroes furthest down, the people who were in the migrant camps, the migrant workers. If she had not gone and documented those folkways, we would not have that information now. That for you who do primary research, that's what she did. She dedicated her life to primary research. But what also she did was to be able to take that research and use it as a foundation for wonderful literature. That's where the genius is, because of her storytelling ability. And so you have, for example, her classic. And think about this. Janie Crawford was illiterate. What does that mean? The word illiterate. That's right. She could not read and write. She did not have the privilege of formal education. All right? So you have a woman who's illiterate, all right? She's a protagonist. She's a protagonist of Zora Neale Hurston's classic novel. Why is she the protagonist? What is it that makes people all over the world engaged by Their Eyes Are Watching God? Let's talk about it. What is it? Yes?
I think it's a universal love story, as well as a different way of representing African American women, especially during the time when the text was written, I think, in 1930s.
In the 1930s, yes. It is a universal love story. Are all of you familiar with Their Eyes Were Watching God and what the love story is? All right, the love story is this. A woman in her mid-40s takes a great risk. She takes a great, great risk. Let's remember who Janie Crawford is. First of all, Janie Crawford was a physically beautiful woman whose grandmother tried to make certain that she was protected by marrying her off to a man of means. A man of means who was probably old enough at least to be her daddy, but a man of means, all right? Zora Neale Hurston, or Janie Crawford, leaves him because though originally he sees her as a trophy wife, at a certain point he says, I'm the man of means, you need to pull a plow, all right? Then she runs off with Jody Sparks, who is an entrepreneur, but she still is a trophy wife for him. And he is insecure, just as Logan Killicks was. He's insecure because he's got to put her down in front of people all the time, just so that she can be reminded that who's up on the upper level. He dies, and she has amassed a certain amount of property in addition to her prestige. And who should come along but Tea Cake? I mean, is he a jitterbug or what? Tea Cake has got to be half her age. What's the risk? What's the risk?
Losing everything.
Because of what? Because why? He's just talking sweet to her and getting her money. Please. As the people said, how stupid can you be? Here you are, a good grown woman with money. What is this young boy? All he wants to do is to take your money and make a fool of you. I mean, can we get to this? Ladies, gents, okay, all right, yes. So when she goes off with him, but it's the love story because why? What is the love story? Where is it? What about Tea Cake?
I think it's in what he didn't have. It was completely opposite the other men that she had married, and men who were able to support her financially, which is what her grandmother wanted. He didn't have any of that. He treated her. Yeah, he had himself.
And how did he treat her? What's an example of the representation of her to Tea Cake? What does he do in the story that lets you know that he considers her as a person?
He treated her as an equal. He taught her how to shoot the guns.
And how to play checkers? All right, yeah. So that's when we say, just think about it. Think about where you are now as an individual. And wouldn't you like to have the security of a mate that you could trust? Wouldn't you like to do that? Yeah. Yes. I mean, that one way or the other, because we are individuals. But when we are two, then we are complete. I mean, I'm not trying to get transcendental and spiritual, but that's the way it is. Okay, two people, and you have a mate. You have someone who can share with you, someone that you can trust, and that is a universal love story. That's a universal love story. But think about the fact that the protagonist, as I say, it's a story. It is a story. And it's a story that is grounded in a culture that is probably alien to most of the readers. But because of the beauty of the story, it has a universal appeal. Why? Because it addresses a universal condition, and that is that we are all looking to find ourselves. That's what Janie Crawford does. In the course of that story, she's looking to find herself. And so that journey is expressed through relationships with men. But ultimately, when she comes back to Eatonville, she is a confident and secure woman. She is prepared to tell her best girlfriend, Phoebe, the story without any hesitation. And so Zora Neale Hurston, in weaving that story, has created a universal a universal story, one that has appeal because it resonates with the individual. And as I close this talk, I want to share with you a story that I was told, or actually I was in a public talk, something like this talk, and I was an undergraduate. I would have been 20, and so that's 43 years ago. I was in a public talk by the late poet, the late Nobel laureate Isaac Bashevis Singer. You know what the Nobel laureate, when I say that, you know what I'm making reference to. He had won the Nobel Prize for Literature, which is the highest distinction that a writer, a creative writer, can achieve. And I was an undergraduate at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and a co-ed from southern New York, probably Long Island. And I say that because I want to be very ethnic, because this story really starts in ethnicity. And she said, Dr. Singer, why is it that you just write about the Jewish experience? And Isaac Bashevis Singer that is the base of his, that is the corpus of his work. And he said, well, I write about the Jewish experience because that is what I know, all right? And then he said, but you should understand that if literature is great literature, it has to resonate or appeal to human beings, no matter who they are. All right? He said, all literature has to start within a certain context, right? You have to start in a particular set of circumstances. But if it is truly great literature, what you are writing about is going to appeal to the human reading audience. And so that's what you need to understand about my literature, he said to her. And I would say to you, and as I close, is that's what you should understand about Zora Neale Hurston's literature, because so much of it is in dialect. So much of it is in dialect. Now, the good thing about the African-American Southern dialect is if you just read it out aloud, you'll get it. In other words, all those apostrophes and like that, this is not like Gaelic. You know, Gaelic is a dialect of the Welsh language. You look at Gaelic and you don't even have any connection to the mother tongue, or the mother dialect. But Zora Neale Hurston wrote in dialect. Not all of her work, but so much of it is as Black dialect. And for her to be able to take that Black dialect, which is really not standard English, and still weave it and create that wonderful narrative that engages us, that snatches our attention, that is her genius. With that, I'm going to conclude my comments. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your interest. Thank you in advance for your $5 contribution and the fact that you are going to, oh yes, and I will hunt you down. No, and not only that, and that you will spread this word so that you can help Zora Festival stay alive. Hopefully some of you will want to be on our list. If you've given your email address, we will keep up with you. And if you go to the website, the information for volunteering is already there. We're ready for you. All right? Thank you so much.